I'm Cleo Bennett, a 29-year-old interior designer living in the charming city of Willowridge. I've always been the kind of person who plans ahead, saves diligently, and works hard to build a life I'm proud of. But nothing could have prepared me for the chaos that unfolded at my engagement party last spring. My fiancé, Lucas, and I had been together for 3 years, and after a romantic proposal under the stars, we were finally ready to tie the knot. That night, we gathered our closest friends and family at a cozy restaurant called the Ivy Haven to celebrate the beginning of our new chapter. The restaurant was breathtaking, twinkling fairy lights, soft jazz playing in the background, and the scent of lavender from the centerpieces filling the air. Lucas stood beside me, his hand warm on my waist, his smile lighting up the room. We'd met at a design conference where he was presenting his work as a landscape architect, and we bonded over our shared love for creating beautiful spaces. He was thoughtful, steady, and the kind of man who made me feel safe and loved. That night, I felt on top of the world, surrounded by the people who mattered most to us: my best friend Harper, Lucas's parents, and a few colleagues who'd become like family. But not everyone was as thrilled as I was. My parents, Vivian and Graham Bennett, sat at a table near the front, their expressions tight. My younger sister, Elise, was there too, slouched in her chair, scrolling through her phone with a bored look on her face. Elise and I had never been close. She was impulsive, reckless, and always seemed to get away with everything, while I was the responsible one who followed the rules. I tried to ignore the tension, focusing instead on the joy of the evening. This was our night, a celebration of love and commitment, and I wasn't going to let old family dynamics ruin it. Vivian stood up, tapping her glass with a spoon to get everyone's attention. "I'd like to say a few words," she began, her voice warm but her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "Cleo and Lucas, congratulations on your engagement. We're so happy for you both, and we wish you a lifetime of love." The room clapped, and Lucas squeezed my hand, his eyes shining with happiness. I smiled back, feeling a wave of gratitude. But then Vivian's tone shifted, growing colder. "I also have an announcement to make," she said, setting her glass down. "After discussing it with Graham, we've decided to give Cleo's $45,000 wedding fund to Elise instead." The room fell silent, the air sucked out of it like a vacuum. I blinked, my mind struggling to process her words. "What?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. Vivian's eyes locked onto mine, unyielding. "Elise is getting married a few months after you, and she needs the money more than you do." My heart sank, and I knew this night was about to take a turn I'd never expected. I sat there, frozen, as Vivian's words echoed in my ears. The $45,000 wedding fund, my wedding fund, was something my parents had set aside for me when I was 18, a gift they'd given both me and Elise to use as we saw fit once we were adults. I'd been careful with mine, using a portion from my design school tuition and letting the rest grow in a savings account, planning to use it for my wedding and a future home. Elise, on the other hand, had blown through hers in less than 2 years, partying, traveling, and launching a failed jewelry business that left her broke. She'd even bought a flashy convertible she couldn't afford, racking up debt she still hadn't paid off. And now they wanted to take my money to fix her mistakes? I forced a laugh, hoping it was a cruel joke. "That's funny, Mom," I said, my voice shaking. "But that money is mine. It's in my account. You can't just give it away." Vivian's smile vanished, her face hardening. "This isn't a joke, Cleo," she snapped. "Elise and her fiancé are struggling. You and Lucas both have good jobs, you can afford your wedding. She deserves a beautiful day, too." My stomach twisted, a mix of shock and anger rising in my chest. "Deserves it," I said, standing up, my hands trembling. "That money is mine. We've already planned our wedding around it. We're using part of it for a down payment on a house. You can't take it away." Elise shoved her chair back, her face flushed with anger. Don't be so selfish, Cleo, she spat, her voice loud enough to make the room flinch. You've always had more than me. You could have offered to share it ages ago. I turned to her, my jaw clenched. This isn't about sharing, Elise. It's about fairness. I saved that money. I planned ahead. You spent yours on a business that failed and a car you didn't need. Why should I pay for your mistakes? Vivian's face turned red, her eyes narrowing. Elise doesn't have much, she barked. She's trying her best, and her fiancé is struggling. You've always had more, Cleo. It's time you learn to give. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I've always worked harder, I shot back, folding my arms. I followed the rules. I saved. I'm not giving up my future because Elise can't manage hers. Tension in the room was suffocating, the guests shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Lucas placed a hand on my arm, trying to calm me, but I was too furious to stop. Then, in a moment that felt like slow motion, Vivian stepped forward and slapped me hard across the face. The sound echoed through the restaurant, sharp and jarring, and my head snapped to the side. My cheek burned and tears sprang to my eyes, not just from the pain but from the humiliation of being struck in front of everyone I loved. The room went silent, everyone staring in shock. Even Elise looked stunned, her mouth hanging open. I slowly turned back to face my mother, my voice low but steady. You don't get to hit me just because I said no. I touched my cheek, the sting radiating through my skin, and in that moment I knew nothing would ever be the same between us. The silence in the restaurant was deafening after the slap. I could feel every pair of eyes on me, the sting on my cheek nothing compared to the betrayal burning in my chest. Lucas stood up beside me, his jaw tight, his hand gripping mine as if to anchor me. My father, Graham, finally moved, stepping toward Vivian and pulling her back, whispering something I couldn't hear. But it was too late, the damage was done. I heard a soft gasp from a nearby table, and then a waiter's voice, quiet but clear as he spoke into a phone. Yes, I need to report an assault at the Ivy Haven. It just happened. Within minutes, the sound of sirens pierced the air, growing louder as they approached the restaurant. The guests sat frozen, some staring at their plates, others stealing glances at me, unsure what to do. 2 uniformed officers entered, their expressions serious as they scanned the room. One of them approached our table, his voice calm but firm. "Ma'am, are you the one who was assaulted?" he asked, looking at me. I nodded, my throat tight. "Yes," I whispered. The waiter who'd called stepped forward, explaining what he'd seen, how Vivian had slapped me in front of everyone after an argument about money. Vivian tried to defend herself, her voice shrill. "It's a family matter. I'm her mother, she was being disrespectful." But the officer shook his head. Assault in a public place is a criminal offense, regardless of the relationship. They asked if I wanted to press charges, and for a moment I hesitated. Pressing charges against my own mother felt like crossing a line I could never come back from. But then I thought of the slap, the humiliation, the years of favoritism toward Elise, and the way Vivian had tried to take my future away. "Yes," I said, my voice steady despite the tears in my eyes. "I want to press charges." The officers placed Vivian under arrest, cuffing her hands behind her back as she protested, her face a mix of shock and indignation. Elise stared at me, her eyes wide with disbelief, as if I were the one in the wrong. Graham followed them out, his face pale, saying nothing. As they left, the room remained silent, the weight of what had just happened hanging heavy in the air. Lucas pulled me into a hug, his arms strong and comforting, and I buried my face in his chest, letting the tears fall. "I'm so sorry, Cleo," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "You didn't deserve that." Harper, my best friend, came over, her eyes red with anger and sympathy. "I can't believe she did that to you," she said, squeezing my hand. "But you did the right thing. She can't treat you like that and get away with it." I nodded, wiping my tears, trying to steady my breathing. The engagement party I dreamed of had turned into a nightmare, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let my family break me. The days after the engagement party were a blur of emotions: anger, sadness, and a deep sense of betrayal. Vivian was released on bail the next day, but I followed through with pressing charges, and a few weeks later we were in court. Courtroom was small but intimidating, the air thick with tension as I sat beside my lawyer, a sharp woman named Nora Ellis. Vivian sat across the room with her attorney, avoiding my gaze, her face set in a defiant expression. Elise and Graham were there too, sitting behind her, their silence speaking volumes. I couldn't help but notice the way Elise fidgeted, her eyes darting around the room, as if she knew this whole mess was partly her fault. The judge reviewed the evidence, witness statements from the restaurant guests and staff, as well as security footage that clearly showed Vivian slapping me after our argument. There was no denying what had happened. The waiter who'd called the police testified, his voice steady as he recounted the moment Vivian struck me, describing the shock on everyone's faces. Nora presented my side of the story, emphasizing that I'd been defending my rightful claim to the wedding fund and that Vivian's actions were unprovoked and unacceptable. Vivian's lawyer tried to argue that it was a family dispute and that I'd provoked her by being disrespectful, but the judge wasn't swayed. The evidence was too clear, and Vivian's excuses fell flat. In the end, Vivian was found guilty of misdemeanor assault. The judge sentenced her to a $1,500 fine, mandatory anger management classes, and 3 months of probation, with a 20-day suspended jail sentence if she violated the terms. When the judge asked if I had anything to say, I stood up, my hands trembling but my voice clear. "I never thought my own mother would hurt me like this," I said, looking directly at Vivian. "But I deserve to be treated with respect, and no one is above the law." Vivian didn't meet my eyes, her jaw tight, and I sat back down, feeling a mix of relief and sorrow. Justice had been served, but it didn't erase the pain of what she'd done. After the trial, I thought things might calm down, but I was wrong. Vivian didn't reach out to apologize, Elise blocked me on all social media, and Graham remained silent, choosing to stand by his wife and daughter. The rift in our family grew wider, and I felt more alone than ever. But Lucas was my rock, reminding me every day that I'd done the right thing. "You stood up for yourself, Cleo," he said one evening as we sat on our couch, his arm around me. "That took courage. And I'm so proud of you." I leaned into him, grateful for his unwavering support. But deep down, I knew the storm wasn't over. My family wasn't done trying to take what was mine, and I had a feeling they'd come after the wedding fund again. I just didn't expect how far they'd go to get it. 3 weeks after the trial, I came home from a long day at work to find a thick envelope in my mailbox, the kind that makes your stomach drop. It was from a law firm, Carter & Hayes, and inside was a formal notice that sent a chill down my spine. My parents were suing me for control of the $45,000 wedding fund, claiming it was meant only for educational expenses, and that I'd misused it by planning to use it for my wedding and a home. I stared at the letter, my hands shaking, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. The money had been legally mine since I turned 19, transferred into my personal account with no strings attached. My parents had told both me and Elise we could use our funds however we wanted. They'd never mentioned any restrictions. But now, because Elise had squandered hers, they wanted to take mine to bail her out. I called Nora the next morning, my voice trembling as I explained the situation. "They don't have a case, Cleo," she said confidently after reviewing the documents. "The fund was a gift, and there's no legal documentation specifying how it was supposed to be used. Their claim about a verbal agreement won't hold up in court." I exhaled, relieved, but the anger still simmered inside me. "Then why are they doing this?" I asked. Nora sighed. "Because they're trying to pressure you into giving in. They're protecting Elise, and they're willing to drag you through the mud to do it." Her words hit me hard, confirming what I'd always known but never wanted to admit. My family had always favored Elise, even when it meant hurting me. The months that followed were exhausting. The lawsuit consumed my life. Endless emails, court filings, discovery requests, and preliminary hearings. Every time I stepped into the courtroom and saw Vivian, Graham, and Elise sitting together, avoiding my gaze, it felt like a fresh betrayal. Elise wore a smug expression at every hearing, as if she was certain she'd walk away with my money. During one session, she took the stand and claimed the fund was always meant for college, but Nora dismantled her story with ease. "Did you use your entire fund for educational expenses?" Nora asked, her tone sharp. Elise hesitated, her face flushing. "Not all of it," she mumbled. "So you dropped out of college and spent the rest on a failed business and a car, correct?" Nora pressed. Elise had no answer, her lies exposed for everyone to see. Through it all, Lucas was my anchor, attending every hearing, holding my hand through every setback and reminding me why I was fighting. But the stress took its toll. I lost sleep, struggled to focus at work, and felt the joy of our wedding planning slipping away. We had to delay booking vendors, unsure if we'd have the funds to pay for them. I cried more than I'd ever admit, sometimes in the middle of the night, sometimes in the bathroom at work. But I refused to give up. This wasn't just about the money, it was about standing up for myself, about refusing to let my family take everything I'd worked for. I was determined to fight, no matter how hard it got. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, they did. A few weeks after the lawsuit began, I started getting calls from friends and relatives, all asking the same shocking question: "Why did you cancel the wedding?" My heart stopped the first time I heard it, from my cousin Amelia. "What are you talking about?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Your mom told me you and Lucas broke up, that he cheated on you," she said, her tone sympathetic. I was stunned, my mind racing as I tried to make sense of it. Over the next few hours, more calls came, each one echoing the same lie. Someone had even sent fake emails, designed to look like they were from me, announcing that the wedding was off. I checked my sent folder, nothing. Someone had created a fake account to impersonate me, and the betrayal felt like a knife to the heart. I called my Aunt Fiona, one of the few family members who hadn't taken sides, and she confirmed my worst fears. "Vivian's been telling people you're unstable, Cleo," she said with a sigh. "She says Lucas cheated on you and that the wedding was never going to happen. She's trying to make Elise look better by tearing you down." The betrayal cut deeper than anything I'd felt before. My own mother was spreading lies to ruin my reputation, all to protect Elise. That evening, Lucas came home and showed me something even worse: photoshopped images Elise had sent him, claiming I'd been cheating on him. The photos were laughably bad, my face poorly edited onto another woman's body, but the intent behind them was chilling. "I didn't believe it for a second," Lucas said, pulling me into a hug. "But your family is trying to destroy us. We decided we couldn't let this go on. We hired a private investigator, a woman named Tara Reed, to look into the fake emails and trace their origin. She confirmed what I'd suspected. They'd been sent from an IP address linked to Elise's apartment. Armed with this evidence, we went to the police and filed a report for harassment and defamation. The officer we spoke to was sympathetic but explained that proving criminal intent would be difficult. Still, he agreed to issue a warning to Elise, and we hoped it would be enough to stop her. But deep down, I knew my family wasn't done. They'd do anything to sabotage my happiness, and I couldn't shake the feeling that they had more planned. The lies and harassment made me paranoid, especially as our wedding day approached. I couldn't shake the fear that they'd try something else, something worse. Lucas and I decided to take extra precautions, hiring professional security for the wedding and providing them with photos of Vivian, Graham, and Elise with strict instructions to keep them out. Broke my heart that it had come to this, but I wasn't going to let them ruin the most important day of my life. I'd fought too hard to let them take that from me, and I was determined to protect the joy Lucas and I had worked so hard to build. The morning of my wedding arrived, a mix of excitement and dread swirling in my chest. Lucas and I had chosen a beautiful outdoor venue just outside Willowridge, a garden surrounded by blooming flowers and a wooden arch draped in white roses. It was simple but elegant, exactly what we'd dreamed of. I stood in the bridal suite, adjusting my veil, my stomach in knots, not from the vows but from the fear of what my family might do. We'd hired 2 security guards to monitor the entrance, with clear instructions to deny entry to Vivian, Graham, and Elise, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something would go wrong. At around 1:30 p.m., as I was touching up my makeup, there was a knock on the door. One of the guards, a tall man named Ethan, stepped inside, his expression serious. "Miss Bennett, we've detained a young woman trying to enter through the back service gate," he said, his voice low. "She matches the photo you gave us, your sister Elise." My heart sank, a wave of anger and sadness washing over me. "Was she alone?" I asked, my voice trembling. Finn nodded. "Yes, but she was carrying a tote bag. When we searched it, we found a can of black paint and a pair of gloves." I gasped, my hand flying to my mouth. The paint, she'd planned to ruin my wedding, to splash black paint over my dress, the decorations, everything we'd worked so hard for. Rage and disbelief battled inside me, but I forced myself to stay calm. "Do you want to press charges?" Finn asked. "We can call the sheriff right now." I hesitated, the weight of the decision pressing down on me. Elise deserved consequences. She'd tried to destroy my wedding day, just like she'd tried to ruin my life for months. But this was my wedding, the day I'd been dreaming of, and I didn't want it tainted by more drama. "No," I said finally, my voice steady. "Just make sure she's removed from the property and doesn't come back. And double-check that my parents aren't here, too." Ethan nodded and left, and I sank into a chair, my hands shaking. Harper, who'd been helping me get ready, knelt beside me, her eyes wide. "She tried to ruin your wedding with paint," she whispered, her voice a mix of shock and fury. I nodded, tears welling up. "She's never going to stop, Harper. She hates me." Harper took my hands, her grip firm. "Listen to me, Cleo," she said fiercely. "She didn't ruin anything. You stopped her. You're getting married today, and nothing, not Elise, not your parents, nothing is going to take that away from you. You've already won." I wiped my tears, her words giving me the strength I needed. She was right. I'd fought too hard to let Elise's actions overshadow this day. My Uncle Daniel, my mom's brother and one of the few relatives who'd supported me, arrived to walk me down the aisle. As I stepped into the garden, I saw Lucas waiting under the arch, his eyes locked on mine, and in that moment, everything else faded away. Today was about us, and I wasn't going to let my family take that from me. The ceremony was everything I dreamed it would be, beautiful, heartfelt, and full of love. As I walked down the aisle on Uncle Daniel's arm, the soft music playing and the sun casting a golden glow over the garden, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't known in months. Lucas's smile was radiant, his eyes shining with tears as he watched me approach. We exchanged vows we'd written ourselves, promising to stand by each other through every challenge, to build a life rooted in love and trust. When the officiant pronounced us husband and wife, the guests erupted into applause, and Lucas pulled me into a kiss that made my heart soar. For the first time in a long time, I felt free, like I could finally breathe again after months of holding my breath. The reception was a dream, laughter, music, and the warmth of the people who truly cared about us. Harper gave a toast that brought tears to my eyes, speaking about my strength and the love she'd seen grow between me and Lucas. "Cleo has been through more than most of us can imagine," she said, her voice steady. "But she never let it break her. Today isn't just about a wedding, it's about a victory." The guests clapped, and I squeezed Lucas's hand, grateful for the support surrounding us. We danced our first dance to a slow song, swaying under the twinkling lights, and for those few minutes it was just the two of us, the rest of the world melting away. I could feel the weight of the past year slipping off my shoulders, replaced by a lightness I hadn't felt in so long. Guests came up to us throughout the night, commenting on how beautiful the venue looked and how happy we seemed. A few had heard whispers of the drama with my family, but they respected our silence, focusing instead on celebrating our joy. My cousin Lila pulled me aside during dinner, her voice soft. "I'm so proud of you, Cleo," she said. "You stood up for yourself and you deserve every bit of happiness today." Her words meant more than I could express, a reminder that not everyone in my family had turned against me. As the night wound down, Lucas and I slipped away, running through a shower of petals thrown by our friends, climbing into a car decorated with "Just Married" signs. We drove off, both of us grinning, the venue's glow fading in the distance. We'd done it. We'd had our dream wedding despite everything my family had tried to do. Our honeymoon was pure bliss, 2 weeks in a quiet coastal town, far from Willowridge and the chaos of the past year. We spent our days walking along the beach, eating fresh seafood, and talking about our future. For the first time in months, I let myself relax, the weight of the lawsuit, the slap, and the sabotage finally lifting. Lucas and I laughed more than we had in ages, and I felt a renewed sense of hope for the life we were building together. My family hadn't broken us. They'd only made us stronger, and I knew we'd carry that strength into every chapter of our lives. When we returned from our honeymoon, life settled into a rhythm I hadn't realized I'd been craving. Lucas and I used the $45,000 fund exactly as we'd planned. Our wedding had been perfect, and the rest went toward a down payment on a small but cozy house just outside Willowridge. It wasn't extravagant, but it was ours, with a little garden where Lucas could experiment with his landscaping ideas and a bright studio space for my design work. We spent our weekends decorating, painting walls, and building furniture together, turning the house into a home filled with love and memories. There was something so satisfying about putting up shelves we'd built ourselves, choosing colors that reflected our personalities, and hanging photos from our wedding day on the walls. Each small project felt like a step toward the future we'd fought so hard for. The lawsuit had ended in my favor. The judge ruled that the fund was legally mine, with no restrictions on how I could use it. My parents had no case, and they were ordered to pay my legal fees, a small but satisfying victory. Vivian and Graham didn't reach out after the ruling, and Elise stayed silent too. I heard through the family grapevine that they were planning Elise's wedding, apparently going all out with a lavish event at a fancy hotel in downtown Willowridge. They'd taken out a loan to cover the costs, sinking themselves into debt to give Elise the day they thought she deserved. I couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness, not for them, but for the relationship we'd never had. I'd always wanted a family that supported me, that celebrated my wins as much as my sisters, but I was starting to accept that I'd never have that with them. Harper remained my rock, checking in on me regularly and helping me process the emotional fallout. She'd been there through every step of the drama, from the slap to the lawsuit to Elise's attempt to ruin my wedding, and her unwavering support meant the world to me. One evening, as we sat on my new porch sipping tea, she brought up something I hadn't expected. "Have you thought about reaching out to them?" she asked, her voice gentle. I shook my head, staring out at the sunset. "Not really," I admitted. "After everything, the lies, the paint, the lawsuit, I don't think I can. They'd have to change, really change, and I don't see that happening." Harper nodded, understanding. "You've built something beautiful here, Cleo," she said, gesturing to the house. "You don't need their approval to be happy." She was right. I'd found a new sense of family with Lucas, Harper, and the few relatives who'd stood by me, like Uncle Daniel and Cousin Lila. I'd also started attending a local book club, where I met a group of women who became fast friends. They didn't know the full story of my family drama, but they welcomed me with open arms, and their laughter and kindness reminded me that I wasn't alone. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I belonged somewhere, surrounded by people who valued me for who I was, not for what they wanted me to be. As I looked around my new home, I realized I'd gained so much more than I'd lost. and that was a victory I'd never let my family take away. A few months after we settled into our new home, I heard through cousin Lila that Elise's wedding had taken place. It was as extravagant as I'd expected. Champagne fountains, a live band, and a designer gown that apparently cost more than my entire wedding. But the shine was tainted. Several family members had declined to attend, uncomfortable with how Vivian, Graham, and Elise had treated me over the past year. Some sent polite regrets, while others were more vocal, refusing to support a celebration built on lies and favoritism. I also learned that the loan my parents had taken out was already causing them financial strain. They'd overextended themselves to give Elise her dream day, and now they were struggling to keep up with the payments. Part of me felt a twinge of guilt, but I quickly pushed it aside. They'd made their choices just as I'd made mine. I never received an invitation to Elise's wedding, not that I'd expected one after everything that had happened. I wouldn't have gone anyway. After the paint incident, the fake emails, and the photoshopped photos, I knew I couldn't trust her near any part of my life. But the absence of an invitation still stung, a final reminder of how far apart we'd grown. Lucas and I spent that day hiking in the mountains near Willowridge, a quiet escape from the drama. We packed a picnic, sat by a stream, and talked about our dreams for the future. Maybe starting a family of our own someday, or opening a joint design and landscaping business. For the first time, I felt truly free, unburdened by the weight of my family's expectations. As the months turned into a year, Lucas and I grew even closer, our marriage a testament to the strength we'd found in each other. We celebrated our first anniversary with a quiet dinner at the Ivy Haven, the same restaurant where my engagement party had turned into a nightmare. Felt fitting to reclaim that space, to fill it with new memories of love and laughter. We toasted to our future, to the home we'd built, and to the life we were creating together. I'd also started a small blog about interior design, sharing tips and stories from my projects, and it was slowly gaining a following. Felt good to channel my creativity into something positive, something that was mine. Looking back, I realized how much I'd grown through the chaos. I'd lost my family, yes, but I'd gained so much more. A husband who stood by me through everything, friends who became my chosen family, and a sense of self-worth I'd never fully embraced before. I'd stood up for myself, fought for what was mine, and built a life I was proud of, not out of spite, but out of love for myself and the people who truly mattered. So I want to ask you, what would you have done in my place? Would you have fought for your boundaries, even if it meant losing your family? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'm Cleo, and this has been my story.